Now we've got that 2040 connected to the network. We go to Internet Explorer. We type in the address, which is going to be http:// the static IP address that you selected for the 2040. So if it's 192.168.1.200, that's what you put in the address line. And you're going to see this, username and password from the video recorder. Very simple. Type in admin. I've changed the password here so there's an extra character, but you get the basic drift. You sign into the device and you're ready to go. Now, here you see the network setup screen that comes out of the Nuo web server. Remember, this device is a web server. You don't have to put any software in your PC to be able to look at the video, live or recorded, or to get in to do these manipulations. Understand that there are levels of password, so you as the dealer can retain the administrative level, so you do these setting stuff, so potentially maybe you don't want the customer to mess with it once you got it up running right. That's up to you whether you give them the admin level or not. They don't need it to view live or recorded video, which is what you're putting the device in for. Anyway, you go to network setup, and here you see the same stuff that we saw in what the disk did, where we've got the default gateway. That's the same for every device in the network. Subnet mask, same for every device in the network. Then we've got our IP address. In this case, the IP address of the Nuo 2040 in my house is 192.168.1.155. Simple enough. And you see up here where I clicked for specify an IP address. That means I'm putting in a manual IP address. And I could change it here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to change it because I don't need to. Now, under network setup, when you click port setup, you see here that there's a management port. Now, the Nuo 2040 is just like every other product that every other manufacturer makes in our business. The main port, and we're going to talk about the software ports in greater detail later, but the main port is going to come defaulted to port 80. What that gives us now is when we type HTTP into // into the address line, we're saying take me to port 80 because that's the HTTP port. I'm going to tell you, anytime there's a default, it should be changed. You want to set the management port for the device to a higher number, a different number than 80 and a higher number than 1600. There are scanning softwares that are readily available for hackers to use, and hey, I got it too, that you can scan a network and it'll scan the first 1500 ports and it'll tell you every device that's on that network. Well, if we select a port number that is higher than 1500 or 1600, then we're in a position where we're practicing security through obscurity. We're going to make that guy scan all 65,000 ports if he wants to find our Nuo 2040. I highly recommend you change the software ports. But, you know, it's up to you. You're driving the car. Now, here you see something that's important. On my Nuo 2040, I changed the management port from port 80 to port 8010. Now, every time I call that device, whether I call it over the internet or whether I call it over the local network, I must use the colon and the port number, :8010, after the IP address, or you won't get there. You flat won't get there. So, once you change the port number, it's real important when you do this port number change that you remember what number you put there, because that's the number you're going to need to access that device ever again after you change the port number. The Nuo product does provide the capability of a complete default to factory settings if you have to start over at this point. But just let's avoid that, okay? So remember the port number, and remember now, whether you're calling over the local network or the internet, you got to use that port number. So now that we've got our device connected to the network switch and we've got our basic IP programming put in, we also could ping the device to see if it's there. So here you see that if I've got a device that is IP address 192.168.1.200 and I ping it and that device is on the network and is powered up and active, it replies to the ping. When I see this, then I know that that device is up and it is working. And that's why ping is like the screwdriver of network testing. You're gonna, or it's like the VOM. I don't know if they still use VOMs, volt ohm meter of network testing. You're gonna use it all the time to see that devices are indeed on the network and functional. we've already talked about the fact that the cameras can be wired or wireless. We need to, before we can program the Nuo 2040 to talk to the cameras, we've got to program the cameras first, or the video encoders, or the wired or wireless cameras. They got to be programmed first, because what we're doing now is we're going to program this Nuo box. It becomes the user to the camera. When we do this and do it right, when we close out of the Nuo programming, what it's going to do is it's going to call those cameras, it's going to connect to them, it's going to put in the username and password that's in that camera, and it's going to put in the port number and the IP address, all that information. It's going to be a user to that camera. It's going to hook up to the camera, and it's going to get the video feed from it. So do your cameras first. Then you program the Nuo to talk to the cameras. You can't really do it the other way around, because the Nuo can't talk to a device if it doesn't have all this information. Now, if you're going to do Wi-Fi cameras, you need to collect the Wi-Fi information, the security information, so you can program that into the camera itself. To do that, we've got to know the SSID, the type of encryption, and the encryption code. You're going to get this information out of the Wi-Fi router or the separate Wi-Fi access point. Here you see my Wi-Fi router. You see my SSID, the service set identifier, SNI 2005. That information you need, because you're going to put that into your camera. Then you're also going to need the type of encryption. In this case, it's WPA pre-shared key. And you're going to need the encryption code, which you see that I have blocked out part of it because I don't want you guys seeing my encryption code. But you need that entire encryption code. That information you need, and you're going to have to program that into the Wi-Fi camera, or cameras plural, to make them work on that Wi-Fi network. Now, one thing to be aware of is that some manufacturers of Wi-Fi cameras don't support all the different types of Wi-Fi encryption. This could be a problem for you. You go out with a Wi-Fi camera, say, I'm going to use this camera. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't work with the encryption the customer has. Oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to change the customer's encryption? I don't think so. Not a good idea, because they'd have to change the encryption in all their PCs and all their laptops, and some of the laptops won't be there, right? Because the guy's got it at the office and he brings it home at night. So it's real important to do that pre-installation survey and gather this Wi-Fi information, and then if you're going to use Wi-Fi cameras, verify with the vendor or through the spec sheet or the instructions that that particular camera will support the type of encryption that that customer has, the exact type of encryption. If you don't, you're either going to have to buy a different camera that does, or you're going to have to wire in a camera. So plan ahead, survey ahead, and you'll keep yourself out of this little trick bag that could happen. Now,